Nigeria, across Africa and around the world. This is Smart Madu Ajaja, the convener of Open Nigeria and Africa Unite, and the anchor of Nigeria Now and Global Matters Arising at ONN. Yes, I'm broadcasting today from the campus of the University of Houston. Yes, Nigeria and the rest of the world is what it's going to be. And things happening in Nigeria with the guilty verdict passed on Mazen Kanu, that is to imprison him for the rest of his life in Nigeria. And on the counts of terrorism against Nigeria. Terrorism against Nigeria. Nigeria is a terrorist state, all right? And threats enforcing sit at home orders. And belonging to a proscribed organization. Those are the three counts on which the kangaroo court in Nigeria found him guilty and sentenced him to a life in jail. How is this going to shape Nigeria? We're going to be seeing in the next few days to come. Yes, that is what is taking place right now in Nigeria. And we're going to be bringing you details, bit by bit details, in our home studio. Hopefully by tomorrow. So stay tuned for that.
Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Bangladesh's former Prime Minister, Sheikh Hasina, was sentenced to death by a tribunal today for ordering a deadly crackdown on student protesters who successfully toppled her government last year. According to a UN report, 1,400 people were killed, thousands injured after security forces opened fire on demonstrators last year. The verdict came as Hasina has been living in exile in India. Bangladesh has been rocked by 30 bomb explosions and dozens of arson attacks over the past few days in the lead up to the verdict. This comes as Bangladesh is expected to hold parliamentary elections in February next year.
That sounds like a country. That's Bangladesh. You remember last year, the students of Bangladesh took to the streets to demand for a new order because of their failing government. And in the end, the president of the country and its cabinet were sent packing. Students did that. And she proceeded on exile to India. Just today, she was found guilty and is to die for the massacre, the mayhem. She ordered the country's armed forces that killed over 1,400 students. Let's go.
In Gaza, Israeli forces have killed at least 3 Palestinians as Israel continues to violate the U.S. brokered ceasefire. Since the start of the truce October 10th, at least 266 Palestinians have been killed, 635 wounded by Israeli attacks. Physicians for Human Rights Israel is reporting at least 98 Palestinians have died in Israeli custody since October 2023, and that the real death toll is likely much higher because hundreds of people detained in Gaza are still missing. Meanwhile, UNICEF estimates more than 600,000 Palestinian children have missed out on school during the Israeli assault on Gaza, and only 100,000 have managed to return to classrooms. Humanitarian NGOs say Israel is still restricting the entry of food aid and other critical supplies into the Gaza Strip. This is Zahia al-Shambari, who waited in line to buy bread in Khan Yunis.
After 2 hours of struggle at the supermarket to get a bag of bread, thank God I finally got 1 bag of bread for about 8 people. I'm really happy that I'm returning with a bag of bread, and I hope this suffering doesn't happen again. Not today, not tomorrow, not any other day.
That's from Gaza. Yes, and Gaza has been in the news since 1948, and there appears to be no end in sight. And the Israeli forces continues to pummel the Palestinians in Gaza. Yes, and in violation of the United Nations brokered peace or U.S. Brokered peace. And Gaza. The Palestinians are very, very lucky that they have a media, mainstream media, that is bringing their sufferings to global attention, unlike what is taking place in Nigeria. The Nigerian issue is censored. The Nigerian mainstream media is nowhere to be found, and reporting accurately what is taking place in Nigeria. But I can tell you, my global watchers and viewers from across Africa and around the world, that what is taking place in Nigeria is far worse than what is happening in Gaza, that the world does not know anything about. So that is why we have taken the pleasure and taken the risk, to bring it to the attention of the people of the world, for them to see what is taking place in Nigeria. What is taking place in Nigeria and Gaza, there are similar things, but the flip, yeah, the oppressor in Nigeria is different. The oppressors are Fulani terrorists and bandits and Boko Haram, tormenting, tormenting Nigerians. Yes, and mostly hit a lot. It's a widespread thing. It's not just about Christians being attacked. It's Nigerians being attacked and being murdered everywhere in Nigeria. But the targets, the criminals, those behind it are Islamic extremists who want to exterminate anybody who is a Christian. And that is the reason the United States is responding the way it is. Now, the response is coming from Nigeria. It's the urgency that the Nigerians are seeking the help. I'm talking about both Muslims and Christians. Politicians are now have joined the fray of calling on the United States to come in and step in to help bring stability to Nigeria. That is how dire the issue in Nigeria is right now.
This comes as the UN Security Council set to vote today on a U.S. proposal to establish an international stabilization force to enforce the Gaza ceasefire. The U.S. drafted resolution also mentions the possibility of a future Palestinian state. But on Sunday, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu outright rejected any path for Palestinian statehood.
Our opposition to a Palestinian state in any territory west of the Jordan River, this opposition exists, is valid, and has not changed one bit. I have been rebuffing these attempts for decades, and I am doing it both against pressure from outside and against pressure from within. So I do not need affirmations, tweets, or lectures from anyone.
Meanwhile, new details are emerging about a shadowy organization called Al-Majd Europe that's been taking Palestinians in Gaza to South Africa. The organization reports ties to Israel. Last week, a chartered plane carrying 153 Palestinians landed in Johannesburg. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa said, quote, "It does seem likely they were being flushed out of Gaza."
Yes, looking at the position, the hawkish position of Netanyahu, that man is not a good man. He's not a man of peace. He's unlike Yitzhak Rabin, who almost secured a peace deal that would have ended this thing years ago. But a few days after reaching that historic agreement, he was murdered. Netanyahu does not want peace in Gaza. Yes, he is like the hawkish Arab extremists operating in Nigeria that drives Boko Haram. They are not men of peace. They don't want peace. They want to destroy Nigeria, just like Netanyahu wants to continue the state of apartheid in that enclave. And it is sad that the world is looking and doing absolutely nothing to curb this man and his excesses.
President Trump said Sunday he is open to talks with Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro as he considers whether to launch a unilateral attack on Venezuela. In brief remarks to reporters, Trump did not offer details about the possible discussions, but said, quote, Venezuela would like to talk. Trump's remarks came as Secretary of State Marco Rubio designated the organized criminal group Cartel de los Soles as a foreign terrorist organization. U.S. officials have claimed without evidence Maduro and other government officials lead the cartel. Trump has claimed that allows the Pentagon to target Maduro's assets and infrastructure inside Venezuela. Meanwhile, the Pentagon said it had killed another 3 people in the Eastern Pacific accused of smuggling drugs by sea, though officials offered no evidence. This brings the reported toll to 83 people killed across 21 strikes since early September. This comes amidst the largest buildup of U.S. forces in the Caribbean since the 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis, involving nearly a dozen Navy ships and about 15,000 sailors and Marines. In Caracas, President Nicolas Maduro warned the U.S. public against allowing the Trump administration to lead the U.S. into a new forever war in South America.
Trouble everywhere. Trouble everywhere.
What does the people of the United States say? Do you want a new Afghanistan? Do you want Vietnam again? Do you want Libya once more, or worse? Do you want a new Gaza in South America? Let me tell you, no, no, and no. Here, peace will triumph. International law will triumph.
Brazil, tens of thousands of protesters marched outside the COP30 climate summit in Belém on Saturday to demand urgent action on the climate, including the rapid phase-out of fossil fuels. The Great People's March was the first major protest of its kind in 4 years, after authorities in Egypt, the United Arab Emirates, and Azerbaijan banned large-scale demonstrations at prior UN climate summits. This is indigenous protester Cristiane Puyanawa.
We are here today at the Global Climate March. Women, youths, indigenous people, riverine communities, and quilombolas are united to demand social justice and the demarcation of indigenous lands. Our land and our forests are not commodities. Respect nature and the people who live in the forest. Demarcation now.
We'll have more from Saturday's protests and the action inside the COP30 climate summit here in Belém, Brazil, after headlines.
Yeah.
Federal immigration
What some countries are doing to the world. They pollute the whole world. And the developing countries suffer.
Its mass deportation campaign to North Carolina's largest city. Democratic Governor Josh Stein said the agents were carrying out racial profiling and stoking fear.
We've seen masked, heavily armed agents in paramilitary garb driving unmarked cars, targeting American citizens based on their skin color, racially profiling and picking up random people in parking lots and off of our sidewalks.
Among those targeted were landscapers decorating Christmas trees and congregants of an East Charlotte church volunteering to tend a garden. In another incident shared widely on social media, masked federal agents pulled over Willie Wender Aceituno Medina, a Honduras-born U.S. citizen, and forced him from his vehicle.
No, if you break it, you will pay for it. If you break it, you will pay for it. If you break my window.
Wow, they smashed the window. Yeah, this is the excesses of what these people are doing. Yeah.
Why are you doing this?
They shattered the guy's windows.
Told reporters
Wow.
he warned the agents he was a U.S. citizen, but that they didn't believe him. He suffered cuts to his arm and neck. He later filed a police report over the broken glass. President Trump's called on House Republicans to approve a measure compelling the Justice Department to release the Epstein files. Trump's reversal late Sunday came after he unsuccessfully lobbied Republican Congresswomen Lauren Boebert and Nancy Mace to remove their names from a discharge petition seeking the files' release. This follows months of stonewalling by the Trump administration over the files' release. And after Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson adjourned the House early to prevent a vote on the Epstein files. On Friday, Trump demanded the Justice Department investigate a list of powerful Democrats discussed in a trove of newly released emails from Jeffrey Epstein, but omitted his own name. The list includes former President Bill Clinton, former Treasury Secretary and former Harvard President Larry Summers, and Democratic donor Reid Hoffman. Trump wrote on social media, quote, Epstein was a Democrat, and he's the Democrats' problem, not the Republicans' problem, the president said. The Georgia election interference case against President Trump and his allies will now have a new prosecutor after Fulton County District Attorney Fonnie Willis was removed from the case. The executive director of the Prosecuting Attorneys Council of Georgia, Spete Skandalakis, is set to take over the case. Georgia State University law professor Anthony Michael Kreis told the Associated Press, quote, I doubt anything will ever move forward with the president, unquote. But the case could proceed against 14 other Trump allies, including former New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani and former White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows. Trump's pardoned Giuliani, Meadows, and dozens of other Republican officials and activists accused of helping him overturn the results of the 2020 election. But the pardons only apply to federal cases, not the Georgia election interference case, which is a state-level prosecution. In the Philippines, hundreds of thousands of demonstrators took to the streets Sunday to demand accountability over a corruption scandal that exposed how top government officials were receiving kickbacks from construction companies responsible for faulty and incomplete flood defense projects. The three-day protest rally comes after typhoons battered the Philippines early this month, leaving at least 259 people dead.
Almost for isang daang araw na yung proseso.
100 days has passed since the process began, and yet no one has been jailed. There already is plenty of proof. A lot of evidence has come out. But our question is, how come no one has been jailed?
In the Democratic Republic of Congo, at least 32 people were killed after a bridge at a copper and cobalt mine collapsed due to overcrowding. A government agency reports that gunfire from soldiers at the site sparked panic among the miners who rushed to the bridge, causing it to collapse. The DRC is the world's largest producer of cobalt, which is used to make batteries for electric vehicles. A BBC investigation has uncovered new evidence that implicates two U.S. Marines in the killing of Iraqi civilians in Haditha 2 decades ago. The BBC reports statements and testimony given in the aftermath of the Haditha massacre raised doubts about the investigation into what happened November 19, 2005, when U.S. forces slaughtered 24 Iraqis, posing significant questions over how U.S. armed forces are held to account. Just one U.S. soldier was convicted of a crime over the massacre. Marine Staff Sergeant Frank Wuterich was found guilty of negligent dereliction of duty in 2012 and served no jail time. And disability rights advocate and writer Alice Wong has died at the age of 51. When Wong was born with muscular dystrophy in 1974, doctors said she wouldn't live to the age of 18. Despite that prognosis, Wong went on to earn an undergraduate degree at Indiana University and a master's degree from the University of California, San Francisco, before founding the Disability Visibility Project, an online community dedicated to creating, sharing, and amplifying disability media and culture. This is Alice Wong speaking with Democracy Now! In 2021.
the public do not know what ableism is, and if they hear about it, they actually deny that it exists. Ableism is systemic, and it's really bound up with hypercapitalism and white supremacy.
And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I am Amy Goodman.
Amy, thank you very much for that beautiful reportage. And now we go back to things that are trending in Nigeria. Again, run through Nande Kano, the leader of the indigenous peoples of Biafra, IPOB, was today sentenced to a life jail term in Abuja, Nigeria. In what observers are saying was a kangaroo judgment, looking at the circumstances surrounding his rendition and being brought back into Nigeria. He was kidnapped in Kenya by the rogue Nigerian government under the terrorist leader Muhammadu Buhari, who died a few months ago like a rat, and he passed him on to his successor, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the notorious drug dealer who sold drugs in commercial quantity here when he was living in the United States, operated between Illinois and Indiana. And the man who was supposed to be sentenced to jail, he was arrested, prosecuted, but somehow reached a deal with the United States government that collected 400 and something, nearly 500,000 US dollars, and allowed him to live without seeing the four walls of a prison system. He returned to Nigeria and became a senator, and then on from there to become the governor of the richest state in Nigeria, that's Lagos State, where he looms large. He confiscated over 1/4 of the state's resources, and into his pocket, he chooses who is to be and who is not to be, including who can live and or who can die. And has a lot of cases of blood in his hand. One of Funshaw Williams, a case that still has not been solved, but all fingers are pointing at him as responsible for the slaying of that man. Yes, so over the years, he amassed so much money to the extent that he became richer than Nigeria. He brought a bullion van to his compound some few years ago ahead of an election. I was distributing money from a bullion van. Yes, bullion van. Yes, he was distributing money. The country's security system, they saw him. He's above the law. He looms large above the law. Nobody can do anything to him. Now he has placed the country at the verge of a total collapse. The economy run down, healthcare delivery system run down, educational system run down, infrastructure run down. Yes, insecurity in Nigeria, second to none, under his less than 3 years tenure. And this beast wants to run for president in 2027. I don't know, I don't see the pathway to it, but that's what they are saying. And a lot of other things. Nigeria is at a deadly crossroad right now. Let's not make mistakes about that. And do you think it will make it? It will make the right choice without a moral compass? Yes, a country run by entirely morally bankrupt people at all levels, no exception, no exception, no exception. That is where we are with Nigeria. Now, more of what is going on. Nnamdi Kanu was found guilty just of terrorism by a kangaroo court in Nigeria. The reason is that he was found guilty because he's an Igbo man. That is all. Gumi, a known terrorist, a man who eats and dines with terrorists. Kashin Shettima, the country's rogue vice president, eats and dines with terrorists. In fact, he's fingered as the founder of Boko Haram, but he's sitting on the presidency of Nigeria. Saad Abubakar, the fake and corrupt Fulani Sultan in Sokoto, is known as one of those masterminding terrorism in Nigeria. Yes, do you want me to continue? 2 ministers of defense, one substantive and one for state, Bello Matawale, yes, are connected to terrorism. In fact, Bello Matawale was governor of Zamfara State for 8 years. And during his 8-year tenure, he quartered the leaders of terrorist groups. Yes, stealing gold. Yes, armed by little Chinese companies and some European companies. Stealing gold in Zamfara State, yes, of Nigeria. That is how sorry Nigeria is. Yes, Bola Ahmed Tinubu is the greatest threat to national security and corporate existence of Nigeria. It's a grand reflection of corruption and ineptitude in Nigeria. I don't know what happened to the people of Nigeria that they cannot come together to do justice for themselves, for their now, for their children, and for their children's future. Yes, we are going to bring you the details of this in our next broadcast. And yesterday, into early this morning, we brought to the attention of Nigeria through a live stream featuring Mr. Charles Ogumba, all the way from Los Angeles, California, yeah, United States. And the highlights of the broadcast were a message to the Hausa people who have been used as pawn for 221 years by the Fulani elite group. Yes, that denied them access to opportunity, denied them education, made them poor in their own land after they destroyed their kingdoms, chased out or murdered all their kings, and installed killer Fulani kings all across Hausa kingdoms in the north of Nigeria. Yes, Fulani minority over, yes, kings and sheikhs over whopping Hausa majority in Nigeria, where there is something brewing right now. A rebellion from the Hausa people is brewing. So Nigeria is pregnant. Who knows what is going to deliver? And second, on the highlight, recent killings in Kebbi and Kwara, respectively. Yes, in Kwara State, just yesterday, a church was a massive massacre of members of a particular church, CAC they call it, in Kwara State. And prior to that, there was this massive killing in Kebbi State. Yes, by Fulani terrorists. Yes. And the recent masterminds of terrorism in Nigeria, including 2 Fulani defense ministers, are enrolled in Bola Ahmed Tinubu's cabinet that have become untouchable. And there are evidences, not just mere speculations. Yes, video evidences of their collaboration with terrorist organizations. They are responsible for what is taking place in Nigeria. But how the Nigerian security operatives and the security agencies don't do anything to these Fulanis, but they find it so easy and so expedient to jump and prosecute people who are only agitating, yes, non-violently, like the Biafrans. They have been agitating non-violently. If they choose the cause of violence, is what the Nigerian security system, aided by those who support terrorism, made them to go. They have to start fighting back in self-defense. Now, there is one funny puzzle that Nigeria is just a blight on the face of Nigeria. Yes, one ragtag Bello Turuji is a Fulani. The Nigerian army from what I heard sometime last year about a general in the Nigerian army came to the national television claiming that they have all the devices that they needed to track Bello Truji, and that they were in fact tracking him. They knew where he is, wherever he goes. But the question now, 2 years after, Bello Truji has been committing one kind of mayhem involving the high death tolls on Nigerians. And the army, the Nigerian army, yes, whose command and control infrastructural positions are in the hands of the Fulanis, has not been able to effect his arrest. What a country. What a country. And then the corrupt and compromised Nigerian military, the removal of General Christopher Musa, and the slaying just a few days ago of General M. Uba. Christopher Musa was the immediate past Chief of Defense Staff. When he started off, he was making more political statements than politicians themselves. We warned him that his position as a soldier is supposed to be that position of standing for the country's territorial integrity. He was not supposed to be supporting a government, but he put his head and body into defending a rogue democracy that emerged from a disastrous election. Yes, where the winner was declared the loser, and the loser was declared winner in the dead of night when the people of Nigeria were sleeping. Yes, that's the type of country we have. Now, towards the end, General Christopher Musa realized himself and started speaking to the issues central to the insecurity in Nigeria. Now, the Fulanis won't have it. They have to come together, put pressure on Bola Ahmed Tinubu, their puppet that they have come to power through compromising all of our country's security apparatus. Yes. And then he let General Christopher Musa go. And I replaced him with a Fulani. Yes, with his Yoruba brother, Oluyede, who was the worst chief of army staff. Very unintelligent, very, very confused. He doesn't even know what's going on. Yes, now he's the chief of defense staff. And the chief of army staff is a Fulani. The first act they do, they are more interested in grabbing land than defending the territorial integrity of Nigeria. The other day, sometime last week, they were involved in a show of shame involving the rogue minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Yeson Wike, over a land seizure. Yes, he wanted to, they are doing a regularization of ownership of lands in Nigeria. Yes, he got to a land belonging to the former retired chief of naval staff. Yes, Vice Admiral Gambo, who is retired, but he has soldiers guarding his property in Abuja, a property that was not properly acquired. And then when the federal agents got there, they met a stiff resistance from the soldiers that could have led into a shootout. And the soldiers were led by one little Lieutenant Yerima, who came out to challenge the minister, the rogue minister of the Federal Capital Territory. He came charging. He claimed he had access to the document of the particular property, even though he wasn't the owner. How come a lieutenant in a country at war, a lieutenant and a detachment of soldiers are guarding private property? The young man disrespected the police officers who came with the minister. Yes, telling them, why you dare not talk to me like that. But the corrupt Nigerian media did not see that. The corrupt Nigerian media did not see the disrespect from the fake soldier to the police. A soldier on an illegal duty, who is Vice Admiral Gambo, to be deployed. They say he deployed them. He deployed the soldiers to his illegally acquired property. Yes, all of a sudden, Lieutenant Yerima became a celebrity in Nigeria. To this extent, young girls were offering themselves to marry him without having a clear understanding of what transpired, and that he was there on an illegal duty, which could have earned him a court-martial and a prison term. But for the fact that he's Fulani. This is what we are facing in Nigeria. This Fulani monster has to die in Nigeria. And Nigeria has to be a country for all, a country that is driven by the rule of law. This is apartheid we are dealing with in Nigeria. Yes, this is why Nigeria is not working. They don't have respect for the rule of law. They don't have respect for any constituted authority. You find them in the army. A young Fulani soldier will be disrespecting a major general from other parts of Nigeria, because the army appears to be owned by the Fulanis. They control what happens in the army. Even if you have someone from somewhere else who has a high-ranking position, you are there at their mercy. This nonsense got to end. That is what is taking place in Nigeria. Yes, so they are laws unto themselves. That is why they are untouchable. Now, number 6. Why Bola Ahmed Tinubu is not confronting the masterminds of terrorism, like El Rufai, like Saad Abubakar, like Rabiu Kwankwaso, like most Fulani elites in the north of Nigeria, both those who speak out and those who keep silent, as the violent takeover of Nigeria rages. My friend that I had on this show yesterday told me Nigeria has been captured. That the only thing that will save Nigeria is an external intervention. Now, giving credence to the proposition made by President Donald Trump of the United States, that the United States was ready to move into Nigeria to end the excesses of the religious extremists, and into which most Nigerians are buying now without worrying anymore about their sovereignty. I ask questions about sovereignty. They are in prison. Well, Nigeria, I don't know if they understand what today means in the history of Nigeria. Yes, so these are some of the things we ran down, and we'll be talking in details when we get to our studio later in the day. So stay tuned. I will love you, and we'll thank you for tuning in as we just gave this rundown of what is taking place in Nigeria. And now another question. Somebody said the Yoruba people must be prepared to retake Ilorin, which was violently seized by Osman Danfodio and his forces. If you can't, yes. All right. So see you later. Thank you very much. Much love. And if today is your very first time of please subscribe to our channel. Subscribe to our channel. Join our membership. Share our message, so YouTube will continually send notification to people so we can expand our message to reach more people as we aim to be a global force who will be telling the truth the exact way it is about issues in Nigeria, Africa, and around the world. Now, before I go, somebody sent this message. All right. Why is Saad still in Nigeria after Gumi ran away from Nigeria? Yeah, Gumi ran once Donald Trump made that statement that he will be coming after the terrorists in Nigeria. The major sponsor of terrorism ran away. He's right now in Turkey on exile. So it says Saad, he tried to install a rogue emir in my hometown of Abavo, and I inspired, mobilized, and funded my people to dethrone and drive the rogue emir they had installed, and appointed chairman of their fake Islamic board in Delta State on his return from his inglorious sponsored pilgrimage to Saudi Arabia, and the terrorists assigned to him with whom he was terrorizing the once peaceful and progressive agrarian community and its people out of the town in 2012 until 2018, when the corrupt, evil, and ugly Ifeanyi Okowa, sitting in odium as governor of Delta State, returned him to the town with threats of anyone who would protest his draconian decision backed by a dubious court ruling without recourse to the incontrovertible evidence before the court by Justice Azinge of the State High Court 2 at Asaba. Once I joined the senatorial race without going to him for godly permission, and he felt threatened by an emerging strong Ika voice, especially from Abavo, whom no one could control. Once Ifeanyi Okowa brought the criminal back to Abavo, and all terrorists we had chased out with him returned, that has now become a hub of kidnapping and all manners of violent crimes. Therefore, when people say they don't know those behind the kidnappings in Abavo, I tell them they are mad. As of today, nearly 100 persons have been kidnapped in Abavo, with about 10 dead in the hands of Fulani terrorists who kidnap and share ransom with their Abavo collaborators, led by the dethroned rogue emir that is known to the Delta State government and its governor, who we heard had threatened to arrest him if kidnapping at Abavo did not stop. Why he stopped at threatening the discredited criminal is ridiculous to me and those who know how despicable the terror is. On my own, I will not rest until Saad Abubakar and his cohorts are completely reduced to a non-entity in Nigeria as their punishment for their crimes against humanity. Bye for now, and I love you guys, and I look forward to seeing you in our next broadcast, which is going to talk seriously about the incarceration of Nnamdi Kanu. Bye for now, and I love you guys.